Welcome to the Value Builder Podcast, where we focus on real estate with a value-add mindset. Real strategies, real operators, real outcomes. Let's dive in.
All right. Hey, Value Builder community. Today I have Zane Schartz, who shows us how athletic discipline translates to massive business success. Zane is a professional hockey player who played in North America and Europe, but took those same competitive skills to build a Freedom commercial real estate, which manages right now over 200 million in assets with over 400 active investors. He focuses exclusively, and we'll dive in deeper, in investment grade tenants like Dollar Tree, CVS, Starbucks, creating truly passive cash flow for investors. Now, Zane, you've built a value in two completely different arenas, literally one on ice, hockey, and one commercial real estate. So I would like to start with how did the mindset and skills from professional hockey help you to go and build $200 million plus firm in real estate under management? So if you can start with that, would be amazing.
Yeah. So first off, thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. Hockey was a big part of my life and it still is. And, I was fortunate enough to play at some very high levels, and I played professionally. I played in college and had some great success. And I think when you play high levels of any sport and you're competitive at any level, you always have the drive and desire to be the best and make it to the next level and kind of level up and excel and put in the work that is required to move up. So especially, I played in the minor leagues for hockey, and I was always trying to move up the next level or beat out the person next to me. So, putting in the extra time, outworking the next person, having the discipline it takes to grow and learn and, achieve has been really translatable into real estate. And, there are a ton of people out there, a ton of different operators who do different things in real estate, who offer specific nuances to returns, everybody's trying to raise a dollar. So for me, the competitive side of sports transitioned into, hey, what can I do to make my investment the best investment possible? So that investors want to come and, invest with us. Because the more money we raise, the more properties we can buy, and the more properties we can buy, the more fun it is for me, and the more diversification there is for investors. Really just the desire to be excellent and the desire to want to be the best has been kind of the most easy transition from sports into real estate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, we chatted a little bit prior to this call that, my son was playing hockey, and he started actually late. Not to get on a tangent here, but he started a little bit when he was 3 and 4, and then he skipped. And then he came back when he was 11. So he definitely he started late in hockey. But I remember talking the story. It's all about 10,000 hours. These boys who are playing better than you probably have, maybe a couple thousand hours more. And that stuck with him. And he literally trained from probably 12 years old every single day, and he just was trying to put more hours in. And he caught up. Really, he caught up with the guys who were playing 5 years more than him. So
Yeah.
definitely that competitive edge and hours definitely works, and it's not a magic. It works all the time.
100%. The 10,000 hour rule is real. And, even in real estate, like I've been doing it now for 9 years, and the more I learn, the better I get. And the better I get, the better the returns are and the more investors come. So it's a real thing. And I started playing hockey when I was 10. So I started playing pretty late as well.
Yeah.
And, still played at a pretty high level. So there you
That's
go.
amazing. Now let's stay a little bit here. So I know I have a lot of friends who are athletes, or I played rugby in the past, and I wasn't exposed to many of these folks. Most athletes actually struggle in life after sports, especially if they play high level. Some of them are bounce back really quickly, but I would say majority kind of have trouble to transition and channel that competitive drive into the into the business. I think. What do you think was different with you, or what was missing for those guys who were at such a high level in late 20s and 30s, and they just kind of can find that edge in it?
I think for me, I always had a plan that, I guess if you asked me when I was 10 or 11, I'd say I'll play in the NHL for 5 or 10 years and then I'll go start a business. So I always knew that hockey was going to be in my life and then I was going to do business after.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I kind of in college realized I wasn't playing the NHL and I wasn't going to become a wealthy playing hockey. I was going to make money, but I wasn't going to get wealthy. So I started doing internships throughout college in real estate and kind of started transitioning slowly while still playing hockey into the real estate world. So I did different internships in development, brokerage, and private equity, and kind of also worked in the off seasons in real estate. So my transition was a little bit smoother because I was doing both at the same. I was doing hockey alone, then I was doing hockey and real estate, and now I'm just doing real estate. But, you know, I think as a high level athlete, you'll always have the kind of like, I'm an athlete at heart.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's never going to leave me. It's just kind of like now I'm an athlete and I do business, or I'm a business person who's also an athlete. And, identity is a big thing. And, for me, my faith is the biggest thing about me. And like my identity was never in hockey. My identity was that I was a Christian and that was the most important thing about me. And I just happened to play hockey. So when hockey was quote unquote taken away from me, or when I stopped playing hockey, it wasn't a big identity crisis because my real identity was my faith as a Christian. So, and I still have that. And, that's the deepest root of who I am. And now I used to say I was a Christian who just happened to play hockey, and now I'm a Christian who just happens to do real estate. So, that's a lot about just identity.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to dig deeper into that mission and purpose and your missionary work and stuff, because I think that's where a lot of magic that is. On the hockey, just last question. Do you jump on ice still? Do you coach kids right now? Or are you completely done?
I'm not completely done. I still skate a few times a week, and I actually I still play professionally. I played this year even in Germany for a couple months. Real estate's awesome in that you can work from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So I try to play, 5 to 10 games a season, kind of just as like a substitute player or fill-in guy. Like my agent still finds me places to play. So,
That's
on
awesome, man.
Friday and Saturday nights, if a team is, short a few guys, I might get a call from a team in Oklahoma or Kansas, and they might say, "Hey, come drive up and play with us for the weekend." So that's pretty cool. I still get to scratch the itch of playing competitively and at a high level, and still do that. And I've also bought ownership into a minor league pro hockey team. So I kind of get that side as well, and really just kind of stay involved in the game and help with recruiting for, the college that I went to, and kind of just help be involved. I love hockey. It's still a part of my life for sure.
That's awesome. That's such a cool concept. Actually, you've heard people just going cold turkey. You're still doing professional part-time
Yeah.
and you have
Yeah.
a career. That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's total hats off to you.
I played this season in Dusseldorf, Germany, and my team actually won the championship. So that was
Man.
pretty crazy. I was like, and it was pretty funny because it's a 6-hour time difference. So like my day would essentially like end in Germany, and then my work day would start in the US. So like it was perfect, and it was awesome and a really great experience. So I won a championship. So that might be the end, but you never know.
Yeah. So pretty much you never stop. Do you mind asking how old are you right now?
I'm 31.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you still definitely have another, called maybe 10 years in the tank. I remember I stopped probably for almost 15 years, and I had a local club. I played rugby and went to play for Blaze, and I thought I'm gonna be do fine, but I was 40 and I could not keep up, man. It was just like, oh man, that's it. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's if you don't use it, you lose it, and it's like I see that. I only skate once or twice a week now, maybe even once a week, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting worse, but I'm just slowing the digression down. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, but enjoy, man. Really exciting. If you still keep doing both,
Yeah.
that's awesome. All right, let's go in real estate. I'm always fascinating to ask folks about their model. Just briefly, our model, we are value-add investors who buying small bay industrial, retail, and industrial properties, and we, lease up, and many of them are heavy lifts. But that's where we focus, right? And I'm just curious about your model. Can you briefly describe what you're acquiring, what you're holding, you improving values, just give me like, high level.
Yeah. So we run funds of single tenant net lease assets where we own the buildings, and the tenants we work with are exclusively investment grade tenants with multi-billion-dollar backed leases. So think of a fund of 15 different properties and different tenants like Starbucks, Dollar General, AutoZone, O'Reilly Auto Parts, etc., where they're in a fund and investors have ownership across the whole fund. And we are very consistent and stable because the tenants paying our rent are multi-billion-dollar companies. So we never chase rents. We have monthly distributions for our investors, which is what every investor likes to see. And then kind of the value on top of the cash flow that we add is through our tenant relationships and the lease extensions we get. So really the value of all these properties we have is in the strength of the credit that the tenant is and the length of the lease. So if we're able to extend leases on these properties, we can create value. And then our exit strategy is roll up these funds and sell them to a private equity group or institutional buyer. So we're actually currently kind of marketing one of our funds to potentially sell to private equity groups. Yeah, it's a lot different than like a standard value add multifamily play or just a really value add anything play where you kind of buy a C class deal and make it a B class and put some money into it and flip it. Ours is we're essentially buying A class from day one, cash flowing from day one and saying, hey, we're going to add value, but it's not going to be a 3x multiple. I always tell people we're not looking to be the highest return in an investor's portfolio. We're looking to be the most consistent and stable. And I'm all about diversification for investors. Like if they're looking for some high returns over here and they can maybe get a 3x or a 2x or something, like go for that, but also put some money in our fund and because we're so stable and consistent. So it's kind of the risk return matrix. Long-winded answer to what we do.
No, that's
but
good.
That's hopefully helpful.
No, it's helpful, and I'm saying I have an understanding what kind of investment is that is way more stable, probably in cash flowing day one. So it's less risk, but maybe less on IRR, but less headaches, right? Do you have kind of a rule of thumb? Let's say, in these type of vehicles, the length and the deal IRR or investor IRR. What are we typically looking in those type of deals?
So it really depends on the market.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, cap rates drive the value of all these properties we buy. So interest rates drive cap rates. So what we try to do is we focus really on the real estate primarily. If we buy a good property today, we want it to be a good property in any market or condition. So we're focused on value of dirt and like land and real estate under the building, in addition to the creditworthiness of the tenant and the current cash flow. So like we're looking to hit a 18 to 20% annual return, which is about a 15% IRR, give or take. And we kind of look to exit in 3 to 4 years, depending on the market. But if the market is bad in 3 to 4 years, we can still weather any storm because we know the rent that we're going to have coming in, and we know the tenants that are going to be paying our rent are still going to be there. So we can weather any storm. We can cash flow for 10 years, really. Our weighted average lease term is 7.5 years.
7.5 years.
So we have a lot of term and a lot of time to kind of ride out any storm and find a right buyer for us. So, we're just very consistent and stable, creating alpha for investors and kind of risk adjusted returns is what we're doing.
So 15% IRR, that's on a deal basis, not for LP basis, right? That's on a deal basis roughly.
That would be, yeah.
For a deal basis, yeah. But in 7.5 year leases, that's way different, of course, compared to multifamily or, any other asset class. Very interesting. Do you have like a rule of thumb what spread you are targeting between cap rates and your debt or your do you have
Yeah. I mean, every deal is so different. So the good thing about being in a fund of 15 properties is we can buy a deal that's a 9 cap with 2 years left on the lease that we, will look to extend the lease because of tenant relationships. And we might buy a 6.5 cap. That's a brand new build, 10-year or 15-year lease. And the good thing is we're trying to blend really the strength of the credit of the tenant, the location of the real estate, and the returns. Those are the 3 things that we look to blend across all 15 properties. And, maybe one property we might return 12% cash on cash on the equity on one property, and then another property might be like 5%, but blended that'll come out to 7.5% or whatever. So it's kind of that's where the diversification of a fund comes in our strengths. Every deal is different. We don't know what deals are going to be on the market. It's very market driven and kind of, what's out there to buy, and we find the best ones, what brokers bring us and what we find. And then the debt, on the debt side, we really do get below market debt because lenders love these deals. Lenders throw themselves at these deals because think of a 10-year lease backed by $100 billion company like Starbucks. Like every lender wants to lend on that because there's
Exactly.
very high surety of getting paid back. So we're closing on a deal actually Thursday in 2 days at a 5.9% interest rate and 18 months of interest only payments and 25-year AM. So it's like it's very below market
Right.
debt. So
Yeah.
that helps us cash flow, and that property is going to cash flow 7.5%. And yeah, so we're at a good place from cash flow, but really I'd say we are, and as I've gotten better at this, the 10,000 hour rule, I'm more focused on just strength of real estate. I'm less focused on yield and less focused on kind of the current cash on cash. I'd rather buy a property that cash flows 5% and is going to be much stronger in 5 years than a property that cash flows 10% and is going to have huge headaches and potential of, lease turnover or tenants leaving and just not a good piece of real estate. So we're trying to build the best of the best in terms of like best assets and best real estate. We're not just trying to flip and make a buck quick. That's not what we're building. What we're building is kind of institutional quality investment grade tenants.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such a different model than from value add, but I definitely can see. In my career, I had only one asset like that where we actually bought, it was school bus terminal we bought at market value, meaning, and it was like, like where I'm going to add this value, but it had 5-year leases with 3 extensions. It was bus terminal. It's very sticky. They cannot move anywhere. And thinking they're going to extend 5 years. And it was $1 billion guarantee. And guess what? Yeah, of course, they signed the extension. And after 5 years, and we had 5-year lease and we bought it market. There was no value add component. And we're just banking that they're going to extend in 5 years. And sure, yeah, they extended 5 years. And the deal actually became better than the deal we would buy it with massive value add and construction. So definitely I can see and I experienced that, meaning that, well, 5 years later, we made same or the most, except we did not have to drive the construction, re-tenant, release, and do everything else what comes out. We just have to be patient and wait and have to make the right decisions at the beginning and evaluate how likely that's going to get extended. And it got extended and inflation and market forces just did the job, did the heavy lifting, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like no headaches over that time. Maybe headaches at like the time of their lease renewal,
Yeah.
but once you find it, you're like, okay, that's good. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. But imagine 15 of those in one fund, and that's kind of what we do. And so we have 15 different streams of revenue, 15 different geographic locations, different tenants, different industries. So really, the diversification helps. And even if you have one of the tenants, not renew their lease, you still have 14 streams of revenue and 14 other properties kind of carrying the weight. So that's where the diversification comes in. And the good thing also is like you own the building. You own all 15 properties, all 15 buildings. So even if a tenant doesn't renew their lease, you still own the property. You can go find a new tenant, or you can sell to an end user buyer, get a new lease in place, which potentially can add value. So there's a lot of ways to do it and a lot of benefits to it.
So, okay, so let's touch on that. So obviously, and I've seen doing this strategy, let's say I'm driving right now, King Route 83. You've been played in all the park, probably where is that. Right on 91st, there is used to be McDonald's, and that's on a very busy road, probably 30,000 cars a day, and it's vacant, and it's dark for 2 years. So someone is miscalculated whether it's going to extend it or not. I'm sure you're getting those, right? And so the question, let's say, if you're getting one of those boxes go dark, do you sell them at loss, or you still re-tenant and do construction, do massive TI? What is your strategy typically?
I mean, it depends on the deal and depends on, how much runway you have. I'd say on that deal, like a McDonald's is probably a 2,500 to 3,000 square foot box that can be pretty much any, quick service restaurant in the world. And you would hope that McDonald's did their research on the real estate on the front end. Maybe they did a relocation across the street or something. Like I've seen that. But yeah, I mean, I'd find a broker and find a local broker to look and find a location of a different QSR that could fit in there. But at some point, if you're like, hey, this isn't going to work, maybe you do cut your losses and cut your time value of money and just sell it at a loss on your equity. Hopefully not 100% loss, but hopefully the value of the land is up there enough, or you don't have a too highly levered debt on it. So, it's very deal dependent, case by case, but I'd say we've had pretty good success on repurposing properties, whether we sell old CVS to a local grocery store, or, convert a Rite Aid to a gas station, or we actually sold an old CVS to a city who converted it to a city library.
Mm,
And, there's just a lot of different things, because all these buildings we buy are just four-walled boxes with, they're not super complex. They're just 10,000 to 15,000 foot boxes. So, yeah, I mean, every deal is different, and that one by you're saying in Chicago that's been vacant for 2 years, like, I'd be curious to hear why. Maybe it's a landlord who's just sitting on it. Maybe they're still getting paid rent
maybe.
by McDonald's.
Yeah.
So, maybe McDonald's had a 10-year lease, so and they're paying it out. So we might have time. But yeah, every deal is different.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. And again, I'm just curious how the model works, and what I'm sensing, probably you don't have construction department, you don't have lease sub department, right? Most likely. Your most efforts is just finding deals and effective capital to take those deals down. What actually, the question is, what is the biggest effort or time spent goes in your model?
So on our models, like the pre-acquisition criteria, like what we look for is kind of stickiness of a tenant. Like you said, like what's the likelihood of their lease renewal?
Hmm.
And if this tenant doesn't renew their lease, who will come in and repurpose
Hmm.
it? So for the first part of stickiness, we look at, hey, where's the closest competition? How long has this tenant been here? How many times has this tenant renewed their lease? Have they renewed their lease at rental increases, or have they taken rent reductions? When was the building built? Have they built anything in the near, 10 miles? If it's a Dollar General, has Family Dollar or Dollar Tree come in nearby? And then kind of for the second part, it's like, okay, let's say we have a CVS. We'd look at, hey, what could this be if CVS leaves? And, what's the rent per square foot? What's the replacement cost? If this isn't a CVS, would a Dollar General move in? Would an auto parts store move in? Would a grocery store move in? Kind of what could this be if it's not? We've looked into repurposing some old, like vacant CVS or Walgreens into various different things. So, we've even looked into converting them to like maybe half Chipotle, half Starbucks, or, a Take Five oil change, or just various things you can convert it to. But really looking at, hey, what could this be if it isn't the current tenant? And prior to that, what is the likelihood of them staying and renewing their lease?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Follow-up questions on the lease extension. I probably can lead with how we try to do it. So, for example, we have something on a contract that maybe lease expires soon, within a year or two. We always try to negotiate with the seller that during due diligence they will allow us to market this property to our prospect tenants and have the tenant interview and start the conversation with options. A lot of times we don't get ability to negotiate an option, but most of the time we get ability to market existing property, to our prospect tenant, especially if it's industrial property, small bay. And in that case, when you're getting those prospect tenants, you're just getting way more leverage, to start negotiating options. So my question to you, in your world, in due diligence, do you get ability to negotiate those early option extensions, or typically it's no in your field?
No. Yeah, you're able to. So most of the deals we buy, tenants aren't going to even start the conversation
Hmm.
of a lease renewal, because it's stabilized. Typically, at a 7-year lease term, the tenant doesn't want to talk about an early extension. There's no reason for him to.
Hmm.
But we have bought deals kind of in the 2 to 3 year range where we have reached out to the tenant and gotten good feedback. And if we get bad feedback, we terminate the contract and move on to the next one. But so it's called a blend and extend, where essentially you get the deal under contract, you reach out to the tenant or a tenant relationship there, and they give you either kind of like a thumbs up or thumbs down of if it's good property or not, and if there's high likelihood of renewal. We've even done some where like we've actually negotiated the contract or lease extension when we're under contract, and that adds kind of crazy value.
Yeah.
But those are really hard to find. You have to have a pretty inexperienced landlord seller in those situations, which, we've had deals where we bought from a parent who passes away and, passes on a property to a kid, and they just don't even want to own it and have no idea what they're doing, which it's a win-win because they're getting rid of a property they don't want. We're getting a property that we know is good, and we can negotiate like a lease extension with the tenant because we have a relationship with them and the former landlord doesn't. So, there's situations like that where you can really take like take advantage of a good situation without taking advantage of a person. But those are the situations that really everybody is looking for, and just finding them is the hard thing. But definitely negotiating while under contract and like having those tenant relationships is a value that we add. And, we're not a value add investment group, but we add value through that. So like in a deal like that, like we bought just from a number standpoint, we bought a O'Reilly Auto Parts for $1 million like a couple of years ago. And it had 2 years left on the lease. We negotiated a lease extension, and I think it's worth like 1.4 million today because it had like a 15% rent increase or something. I mean, and we extended 10 years. So it was a pretty big return on equity multiple on these quote unquote boring investments that, is going to be good for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I'll add here, from my recollection, that typically when we win those extensions, almost like 90% of the time would be, even if let's say it's triple net lease and maybe a property needs some capex and needs some improvements, and we just go and tell, okay, we'll give you, we'll improve this, we'll change the roof or asphalt or install, the bathroom, how about we extend the lease another 3 years? I think that was typical conversation for let me to success when we're doing diligence, when the property has some deferred maintenance, so needs some improvements, and lease is structured, that it's almost like tenants' responsibility. People who came in as a new owner do it, and then we'll get a couple of years or 3 years or 5 years on top of that.
Yeah,
Probably similar
totally.
strategy to yours, right?
Yeah, where like if we like sometimes the tenant will be like, hey, we want to upgrade our facade, and it's $1,000
Yeah.
job. If you split the cost with us, we'll go in, which is a good indication that they really like the property because they're wanting to put money themselves into it by renovations, and then they want to extend. So, and also like that's the thing we look to on our acquisition is like, when's the last time the tenant renovated the property? There will be some of these Dollar Generals that are 30 years old, but they renovated them 3 years ago and put
Huh.
50 to 100
That's a great
dollars
point.
into it. And so it's like, if you see that, it's like, well, they're not going to put 50 or 100 grand into a property that they don't want to be at long term, or they don't see themselves being at long term. So that's another thing that is something we look for as well.
Awesome. Great pointers. Appreciate. All right. Next thing, what I would like to dive in is, which I think is related very much to your success and drive and how fast you build the company, is your faith and purpose driven business. I looked around, and it seems like you had you've said, I think, in one of the podcasts, your ultimate goal is to create a nonprofit to fund Christian missionaries worldwide. So how does that mission beyond the money affects your business building, business drive, and stuff like that? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I love sharing about it. Like, my faith is the most important thing about me. Like I said earlier, like my life changed and Jesus changed my life, and I think I want the world to know the same hope and truth that I know. And I think I want to use real estate as the platform to help fund missionaries. I actually tried to work for a church coming out of college, and was kind of between real estate and working at a church. And, the church door closed, and God made it very clear that I was supposed to be in real estate. So, and that's become even more clear over the past few years. But yeah, I think like missionaries all over the world are telling people about the truth that changed my life, and they have to have money to live their lives and be sent where they are. So whether they're sent to Lithuania, Slovenia, Slovakia, or Japan, like there are missionaries in all those countries who want to share the same hope of Jesus that changed my life. And somebody asked me the other day, they said, how are you so outspoken about your faith? And I said, well, I don't know if you know the shoes Hoka's. Do you know Hoka shoes?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So there's Hoka shoes. And I said, the first time I wore a pair of Hokas, I was like, these are the most comfortable pairs of shoes I've ever had. And like, I started telling everybody about it. I bought a pair for everybody in my family for Christmas. And I just started being an evangelist for Hokas, essentially. And I was like, that's exactly what I do with my faith. I was like, my faith changed my life. My belief in Jesus changed everything. It changed my perspective. It gave me hope. It just gave me purpose. And I was like, I am sharing a genuine change in my life because I want the world to have the same hope. But there's so much just lack of hope in this world. And, Jesus filled that hope, and, the claims of Christianity and the research that I did into it really just gave me purpose. And so, yeah, I think like using real estate as a platform to make money to fund missionaries around the world is my long-term vision. And I'd like to create some type of like nonprofit or charitable fund or endowment that buys cash flowing assets like these that are high credit cash flowing assets. And then the money produced from that cash flow goes to fund missionaries around the world. So that's kind of the long-term vision, and that's what we're working towards.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll comment here. For the last 5 years, me and my partners, once a year joined a home building missionary in Ensenada, and it was always the best weekend for us. The best weekend in terms of how happy we are, and it just building the house in 2 days and giving it away, and we just have to organize at least 5 guys who are in real estate, and it costs $20,000 probably to fund it, but probably not at your scale, but I can attest to that. It's so rewarding when you do that, and you're definitely changing lives.
I mean, there's so much more to life than making money and adding zeros to your bank account. Like the best times, like you said, the best things, the most rewarding things are giving to others and generosity and using the resources that we've been given to spread joy. And like, money can buy you happiness, but happiness is temporary. True joy and sustaining joy comes through faith. And for me, my faith and hope in Jesus is what's given me sustainable joy forever, because happiness comes and goes, but joy is permanent. And the joy I have through Jesus is because of my faith. And I just want the world to know about that. It's like I get more joy out of telling people about how my life has changed than making X amount of dollars. Like money is temporary. Money is just so numbers on a screen, but I don't even need to get into that. But it's just like helping people is really what I want to do.
Yeah. And definitely it's so much easier to operate this way, instead of going after dollar signs, because they're going to be never enough, and if dollar signs become only by product, then it's just so easy to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, this is great. All right, we're top of an hour, so let's wrap it up. Now, where do you think people can find you? You can either social media or website if they want to connect with you, if they wanna be part of your missionary work, where people can find you.
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me is one of 3 ways. One, email me directly, Zane at freedomcre.net, and just say you listen to this podcast and would love to chat. You can visit our website, freedomcre.net, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Zane Schartz. I try to use LinkedIn as a platform to educate people on kind of what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. I'm very active on there and posting kind of what we bought properties for, why we liked it, what we're looking for. Try to really use that as a platform to educate people and kind of just share some of the knowledge that I've learned. So LinkedIn or email are the best ways to get a hold of me, and I'm very accessible, so would love to chat.
Awesome, Zane. I really, really appreciate it. I think you dropped a lot of knowledge, and listeners, you wanna connect with Zane and see how much good he's doing in the world. Thank you.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Value Builder Podcast. For more strategies, stories, and episodes, head to valuebuilder.co or subscribe on your favorite app. Always make it better than you found it and keep adding value. See you in the next one.